Hey there guys, this is Sam
And Justin.
at the Survival Review, and today we are going to be talking about Justin's favorite Universal horror film,
Frankenstein.
which I can't blame him at all for this being his favorite. And it's like, I've only seen it a handful of times, and rewatching it for this, it still grows on me. I love this movie.
Yeah. Frankenstein as a monster has always been my favorite monster since I was a kid. So this movie is just... I love this movie. I've been watching it since I was a kid, and it's such a great movie.
It's one of those movies that, sure, it came out in 1931, but it still works. It still works, and it's still scary.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's not like crap your pants scary,
no,
but it still
has that atmosphere of, like, just generally...
It's still an eerie movie to watch.
Yeah, a very dark movie.
Mm-hmm. Perfect movie to watch at night.
Yeah.
Like, I was so happy I was watching this movie last night at like 3 in the morning because it was the perfect atmosphere to watch this movie.
That is the perfect time to watch it.
And it just brings me back to my childhood when I was watching these movies late at night, borrowing the VHS tapes from my library. This is the early era. This is the second monster movie they did. The first one being Dracula, which was actually the same year, 1931. And I love the feel of the early movies.
They've just got this atmosphere to them that's just like, that's horror.
Yeah. When your opening scene of your movie is a funeral, and then right after that funeral, two main characters dig up the grave, and it's not done in this elaborate way with like lightning crashing, it's just static.
The whole concept of it is creepy, but it's not overdone.
Yeah.
You know, they're not making them seem like these horrible people, and like, but they're also just creepy dudes. Like this hunchback guy and his mad scientist master digging up a body.
It's just morbid.
It really is.
Yeah.
And especially for a movie coming out in 1931, these are really dark concepts to be talking about at that time.
This movie opens, which is a guy coming on stage and warning the audience.
I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you.
Yeah.
And it's terribly cheesy compared to nowadays. But it's just a lot of fun to watch. It's just crazy to show that this movie was terrifying back in the day. The plot of the film, Henry Frankenstein, not Victor like he is in the book, but Henry Frankenstein, he's creating a person using body parts from other dead bodies. And his hunchback assistant, Fritz, not Igor, Fritz. Is helping him out. So one night, Fritz breaks into this laboratory to steal a brain. And if you've seen Young Frankenstein, you know how this plays out.
Abby someone. Abby who? Abby normal.
So Fritz picks up the normal brain, ends up dropping it, breaking it. So he picks up the abnormal brain and gives that to Frankenstein to put into the monster. So on the night he's creating the monster, people arrive at the castle, including his fiancée, who he's been very distant from, their friend Victor, and his scientist friend who works at the college that he's involved with too. And so they witness him creating the monster, which is this iconic scene of just the laboratory and all that crazy equipment going off. And then the classic "It's alive" line.
Oh, it's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
It really is an amazing scene, and it's remembered for very good reason.
And then the monster is created, of course, it has the abnormal brain, so it's just violent. And then after some incidents, the monster gets loose and is running among the town. And that leads to some deaths, and then they have to go find and kill the monster. Everybody knows the story of this movie.
It's well known, whether you've seen the movie or not, you know the story of Frankenstein.
All the performances are all great.
Yeah. Unlike The Invisible Man, like we talked about last time, all the roles, even the supporting characters, are fantastic.
Of course, Boris Karloff as the monster is just... He's iconic. Like, what can you really say? His performance is so great. He is. His introduction is great. It's just this silent, there's no music scene, and it's all done in jump cuts, but it's just eerie. The way he plays off the innocent moments are what really stand out. He was just this innocent creature who just doesn't understand anything because he was just born 2 days ago.
He was literally born yesterday.
Yeah.
But he's still viewed as this monster.
Yeah, and his performance it sells this like misunderstood creature so well.
Yeah.
But even though Boris Karloff is great in the role, I still feel the one who steals the show is Colin Clive as Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah. He really, really is amazing.
Yes.
And if you haven't seen the movie, because I hadn't for a long time, you assume that the whole time he's just this mad scientist who's completely insane, and all he wants is for Frankenstein to be the monster to be left alive, and it's his creation. But that's not really the case.
No. Yeah, he gets obsessive with his work, but he's still this normal guy.
And he still knows his limits.
Yeah.
He knows that this monster is dangerous and that he needs to do something about it.
Yeah, he goes on the crusade to kill him at the end.
Yeah.
And he's so convincing. Everything he says, you believe that what he's saying, like what he thinks he's saying is true.
Yeah.
You never wanted to look beyond the clouds and the stars, or to know what causes the trees to bud, and what changes the darkness into light. But if you talk like that, people call you crazy.
He doesn't come off as crazy.
No.
And
he comes off as a little crazy in some of the scenes when he was obsessed with his work.
Mm-hmm.
You're crazy! Crazy, am I? We'll see whether I'm crazy or not.
But once he realizes that he's gone too far, that's when you really start to empathize with him.
You buy everything he says and everything he does. He's great.
He's
very
really
underrated because I know not as many people talk about him in the movie as much as the monster. And then there's so many key iconic scenes in the movie, including the best one, the most like disturbing one, the scene with the little girl.
Yeah, which is something that's like so crazy that they got away with doing back then, because killing a little girl in a movie like this
in 1931
is just madness. Like,
it's an off-camera death, but it's still the death of a little girl, and there's still a scene afterwards where there's this big party going on in the streets, everybody's happy, and the dad's just walking through the streets carrying the dead body of his daughter. And it's so screwed up.
It really is.
The scene itself, though, with Frankenstein and the little girl, always starts off so innocently. And it's like, oh, Frankenstein's really not so bad. And then he picks her up and throws her in. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah, because he just doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
It's like he's not trying to be evil, but he doesn't know what to do.
Another great example of Karloff's performance, a great performance, is that scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the ending on the windmill is a great scene. Yeah. I love the part when they're inside the windmill and it's Frankenstein and the monster. And there's that shot of them looking at each other through that spinny thing. I love that shot in the movie. I love the ending of this movie. Just it builds up really well.
Definitely.
This movie moves really fast.
Yeah, both this and The Invisible Man are they're very short movies, but they definitely go quick. You know,
they never feel slow. Every scene feels like the story is progressing.
Yeah,
and I love that. The ending of the movie does feel a little tacked on, where they're at the house and it's like, oh, Henry is recovering. It's okay. It did feel a little tacked on.
A little bit. If it had just ended before that scene.
Yeah. And then you probably would have thought that Henry was killed, and I guess they didn't want that.
Overall, the movie is absolutely incredible.
Yes.
My
favorite of the monster movies.
Yeah. I'd say probably my second favorite. And it's very close.
Yes. It does lead to one of the best sequels ever made, Bride of Frankenstein, which we're not going to be talking about this year, but at some point we're going to talk about that movie because I love that movie. I think it's just as good as this one, if not at times better than this one, even though I said this one's my favorite. This one's my favorite because it's the most iconic and just most classic, and I love the darkness of it. On a technical level, Bride of Frankenstein is a superior film. It does what sequels should. It expands the story further. It's not a rehash of the first movie at all. So one of these days, we'll talk about that one more in depth.
Yeah.
Either way, out of 10...
I have to give this movie a 9 out of 10. I feel like I could go a bit higher, but for now, I'm just going to give it a solid 9. I mean, obviously, it's one of the most iconic horror movies ever, and it's remembered for a very, very good reason.
I'm going to go 10 out of 10, of course.
I figured.
One of my favorite horror movies in general. Like one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Yeah, it's definitely amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's about all we've got to say about Frankenstein and the Universal horror movies in general for now.
For now. One of these days, we're going to talk more in depth about more of these movies.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Because there's a lot of really good ones to talk about.
Yes.
So until then, thank you guys very much for watching this video.
And we'll talk to you later.